Hey everybody, this is Kathleen Moss, and you're listening to A Breast Cancer Diary. My guest today is Lisa Sylvester. She lives in Richmond, Vermont, and I've been following her on Instagram for probably about a year now. We're fellow flatties and proud of it. And she's the owner of a company called Interrobang Design. She and her husband run this small business in Vermont, and it's a graphic design studio. And she has a new project coming out of this graphic design business that I'm so excited to talk to her about today. I haven't really dug into it with her about it just because I wanted to save the conversation for the podcast. So this is really, truly fresh, new information that I'm super excited to hear about. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here.
And you're a Previver. So tell me a little bit about how you found out about your BRCA2 mutation.
Yeah, so I had been having breast cancer and ovarian cancer scares like throughout my adult life, and my OBGYN worried about me. And at one point, she said, what do you think about doing genetic testing just so we can know if we are really have something that we need to be aware of? Could inform my healthcare kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, let's just find out. And I thought it was going to be negative. I don't really have a strong family history of cancer. In fact, no breast cancer history at all, and only one ovarian cancer person in my family. Um, my genetic counselor thought it was going to be negative too, and so we were all surprised when we came back with a positive for BRCA2. So I'm the first in my family to find out about it, which was the can of worms everybody warns you about with genetic testing, because that meant I now had to inform my entire family about this new development, this news.
And how long ago was that?
That was 3.5 years ago.
Mm.
And I'm a research monger. So, like, when I found out about it, I was like, okay, what are we going to do about this? And I knew what my options were before I had my consultation with my doctor. And it was my genetic counselor and an oncologist, actually. And they were surprised that I wanted a mastectomy. They actually tried to talk me out of it because they said they're really good at catching cancer early.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, I don't actually want to catch it. I would rather nip it in the bud if we can possibly. So I felt like the mastectomy was the right choice for me. And they also pushed implants right at that initial consultation, and I wasn't sure that that was right for me either. And when I told them I was interested in going flat, that set off alarm bells for them as well.
Hmm. Had you ever met anyone that had had a mastectomy?
Um, so, Interesting story. When I told my mom about this, she was in her 80s, and my mom is a total caregiver. She likes to help people feel better, and but she was had some dementia and hearing loss. And as I was talking with her, I wasn't sure she really knew what I was saying to her. But all of a sudden, she got up and ran outside and started talking with her neighbor who was trimming her shrubs for her. And she came back in and she said, Suzanne, my neighbor, had a double mastectomy, and she'd be happy to talk with you. So she didn't know how to make me feel better herself, but she knew who to put me in connection with to do that. So she marched me out to the driveway to have a conversation with this woman who I barely knew about mastectomies, and she showed me her scars, and we had a long talk about it. And she was the first person I met in real life that had had a mastectomy. My grandmother, my mother's mother, also had one in her 40s, but I was told it was not because of cancer. And I learned from, again, healthcare professionals that back then it was not uncommon for women to have mastectomies for other reasons. So she had a radical bilateral mastectomy and wore prosthetics after that.
When Suzanne showed you her scars, was she flat chested or did she have?
She was flat chested, but she wore prosthetics.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
How did you feel when you saw her scars?
I had been looking around online, so they kind of, I knew a little bit of what to expect, and they kind of fell right in line with that. So I wasn't surprised really to see them. It was like confirmation, maybe. It was like, oh, okay, yes, this is indeed what this looks like.
Hmm. And how did you find the flat community for the first time? How long did that take?
Um, it didn't take long. So I first found photos. of flatties just on the internet, just random searches. And then I found Not Putting on a Shirt and actually used their surgeon directory to find a surgeon. And then I think I found the Instagram groups, and I was like, wow, here it is. There's where all the answers are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty compelling because the story that we're fed, right, is that um, women need to have breasts. That women and breasts go together, right? They're not separatable, if that's a word, but that we can't be whole or healthy or beautiful without them. And it was those women that I found on Instagram that told a very, very different story. In them, I saw strength and empowerment and beauty and femininity and confidence. And I was like, this is not that trope. This is something very, very different. And it was super compelling. And I knew once I saw that, once I found that community, that going flat was right for me.
Did you find them using hashtags or just did you stumble upon them accidentally or?
Yeah, hashtags.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
And describe for our listeners that haven't experienced this phenomenon. What does it look like? What did you see when you went on to these different accounts and saw photos of women that had gone flat?
I saw an incredible amount of bravery, people that were just sharing their truth with no pretense. So it was about showing exactly who they are, showing their bare chests, telling their true stories without doctoring it up to look pretty. It wasn't like the perfect Instagram photo. They were raw and real, and it was just very, very compelling.
What are some of your favorite accounts that you remember from way back?
Um, so Not in the Pink was one of the first ones.
Mm-hmm.
And just a fashion icon and what's not to love.
Yeah.
And then I'm really bad at remembering people's handles, so I'm not going to be able to come up with a lot of others. But there were a handful that were sort of um, very forward, meaning that they were just posting frequently. So I was seeing a lot of their content and just really liked what they were saying, liked the whole sort of body positivity stance that they were promoting, whether that was intentional or not. It was people that were showing themselves without makeup, like I said, regardless of their size or their shape or whatever else was going on. They were just showing their bodies as they were. And there was an honesty there that was just really moving.
Have you ever met someone from the flat community in person?
So this is actually a good segue into my
Yeah.
story. um, so we have a small group in Vermont, a small Facebook group, and I had actually met with a flattie before I had my surgery, and it turned out that she was my neighbor's cousin, my neighbor's niece,
Mm-hmm.
and she was so helpful. We sat and had coffee together in Richmond, and she's like, ask any question, just whatever you got, throw it at me. And she was so helpful and really reassuring. And I remember leaving that meeting thinking, holy cow, flat is really flat. Like her chest was so flat, and it was startling to me. Um, and then and then I was like, okay, it's okay. Like it was a little bit of a shock, right? How flat was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I met some other people from that group. We try to get together periodically, but we're dispersed throughout all of Vermont. So sometimes it's hard for us to kind of like logistically get together. But we've had a couple of get-togethers, maybe a handful of people. But I've like craved wanting to be around other flatties in real life. Like I've always wanted to have that meeting a flattie in wild experience, and that just hasn't happened. And so I don't know. It was like last spring, I got a message from Stantall AFC saying, "Hey, you should join us for one of our walks." And it struck a chord with me because I was like, I really do like crave this connection with other flatties. I am not a real big like event person, so like the walk itself didn't really tick any boxes for me. I'm not like some of these big events and retreats, they don't really appeal to me, um, but I was really curious about this walk and wanting to be around other flatties. So I reached out to this Facebook group in Vermont and kind of said, hey, anybody want to go to Massachusetts, 3 hour car drive for this walk? And I was expecting a no, because we've historically just had a hard time gathering people together. And somebody was like, yeah, I'll go. So we were off and running. And so me and another woman went down to Massachusetts and did this walk in Lowell, Massachusetts. And it was super empowering. It was rainy and cold, and we're walking topless for 3 miles throughout Lowell, Massachusetts, and but just beyond all of that, it was just the conversations that we had together and the sort of instant connection that we had with each other that was really beautiful. But it was at the end of that walk where one of them said, I really wish there was a billboard right there in Lowell, Massachusetts, talking about aesthetic plaque closure for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I think I was just then becoming aware of the work that's needed to be done around AFC, around it being offered consistently, about it being done well for people. And so that really struck a chord with me when she said that. And I thought, well, I don't really have an interest in doing a billboard. We don't have billboards in Vermont, and I kind of like that. And but I'm a designer, so I was like, there's lots of ways that we could create awareness for aesthetic plaque closure, and that's where this whole project started.
Okay, let's get into the project. It's called Still.
It is called Still.
Tell me
Yep.
about the
So
name.
yeah. So I'll give you a little bit of history, and how it connects with the studio first. So we do in our studio what are called no money fund projects, where we collaborate with other creative colleagues that we work with and know and love, usually on a non-client based project, just for fun. No one gets paid. We get the band together. We do this great project, and we create something really beautiful. And so my thought was, instead of a billboard, let's do some sort of publication. Let's make it a no money fund project. Let's invite my creative colleague friends to see if they would want to be part of it. And yeah, and this publication can be used to create awareness of aesthetic plaque closure. That was the idea. There was nothing more to it than that. It's not an especially meaty idea, but it was sticking and kind of nagging at me. And so I put the idea in front of a couple of my friends, and I was again kind of expecting a no from them. This is a little different from the normal no money fund project. It's an advocacy piece. It's a heavier topic. It's personal. I just wasn't sure whether it was going to strike the right chord, but I got an immediate and resounding "let's do it" from them. So the next thing was to really start working and fleshing out this project, and the name was the first part of that. And I had kicked around a couple other names, which I cannot even remember anymore what they were, but this one just kind of stuck with me. And it became a working title initially, and then I was like, this is it. This is it, because that's what this is all about. It's showing our truth of how we are still. And in hindsight, 5 months after the fact, 6 months after the fact, it's the right name, because I cannot tell you how it's resonating with people, both within the breast cancer community and beyond. People get the idea, get the message.
I love that it's like when I first saw the word still, I was thinking still photography. And
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, then you realize as your kind of messaging gets out that you're talking about a different meaning of the word still. It's actually the meaning of
Yeah,
remaining certain things that a woman thinks she might lose when she goes flat.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. That's exactly it. That we are still ourselves, and that's exactly what society and the medical community has told us we won't be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that's been the case for many people. But yeah, so it just stuck, and that was that. So one of the first things we did, or one of the first things that I did to sort of move this project along, was to put together a style guide for the photo shoot and to develop the branding for the project. And this is in my wheelhouse, what I do. And I was kicking around different ideas and trying out different directions and everything. And the logo that is today, just was, again, I've had this experience with this project where things are just sticking or pestering or poking at me or just like raising their hand and saying, it's me, it's me. And the logo kind of did the same thing. Like that logo, I don't know, it was the right logo for the project.
So tell me how you gathered women the first time you did a photo shoot. I don't know how many photo shoots you've done, but
So we've only done one, and it was a little hair raising for me. I'm not a big social media person, but I was working with Christy Raymond at Humankind Casting, and she's still as executive producer, and she's got a lot of casting experience. And I was kind of thinking she would just kind of take the reins and go with it, but I had this connection to the community, and she's like, really, we should be doing this through your social media. So I was like, okay, here we go. Um, and I was looking for 6 to 12 flatties for the project. 6 was my minimum for getting it off the ground. 8 to 12 was kind of the sweet spot where I felt I could get the diversity that I was looking for. Because when I thought about this publication in the hands of a person who's making reconstruction decisions in that exam room with their surgeon or physician, I want them to see something that they can identify with. So I want to show women of all ages, sizes, and colors. So as they're flipping through this, they're not seeing what an aesthetic flat closure looks like, but what it looks like on a lot of different people. And so that, again, they can identify it with it. And when I think about like the hope that this project can provide, it lies there because when when you're going through something difficult like that, and you're feeling pressured to make decisions. There might be a timeline that's factoring into it. It's big and scary. Um, Finding that one thread of hope that you can grasp onto can mean the world, right?
mm-hmm.
And that's what I want this project to do for people. So 8 to 12 was kind of where we were going. And again, we just did the casting through Instagram and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up getting, and I'll add that it was, we were shooting in Worcester, Massachusetts. We had this gorgeous photo studio that gave their space to us for the shoot. And so I was expecting a local response
Mm-hmm.
because, again, it's a no money fund project. So people would have to be able to get to the studio and to the shoot on their own means. And so I was expecting local. And I'm like, I don't know how many flatties there are near Worcester, Massachusetts. Like, how's this going to work? We got an international response.
Oh
We
my
had
goodness.
flatties from all over the country, all corners of
Hmm.
the country, and as far away as Europe that submitted casting submissions for this project.
Wow. I recognized Farhana from Texas and I saw
Yep,
Linda from Massachusetts, so I didn't know how
yep,
far it went, but that's
yep.
crazy.
It is crazy. We have someone from San Francisco. We have two from Texas. We have Florida, Michigan, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Vermont.
Mm-hmm. Was it
Yeah.
a 1 day shoot then or?
It was a 1 day shoot, and shooting 12 people in 1 day is a big task. Getting them through wardrobe and hair and makeup, having their photo sessions, and then the other piece of that day was that we actually interviewed them. So they were interviewed after their photo sessions, and those interviews became the foundation for the text for
Hmm.
the book.
Mm-hmm. Is it a text heavy book?
It is not. So it's a photo heavy book. So the photos are unbelievable. I can't wait for people to see these photos. Our photographer is an internationally published fashion photographer, and his vision is just incredible. I was just so thrilled that he said yes to doing this project. And so when we were casting, we had asked people, what are your top 3 still phrases? How are you still yourself? And so everybody has their still phrase. And then what we did was we had them work with our wardrobe stylist to put together looks that exemplified those phrases.
Hmm.
And then when they got on set, we actually had a huge piece of plexi with the still logo printed on it. And then we had people actually paint their words on the plexi to complete their still phrases. And then, so we had these people who had this phrase that really resonated with them, right? They're painting it, they're wearing a look that complements that, and then we're taking pictures that just really pull all of that out. So for example, we have a flatty, Emily from San Francisco, who is still fierce. And if you can just take a glance at that photo and get fierce from it. Like those messages just come through so beautifully in the photos.
Hmm.
So the text is really, you marry a compelling story with a compelling photo, and then you've got a sort of a powerhouse of a communication happening, right? And these stories. So we ended up doing two publications. It When we saw the stories and the photos, we realized this needed to be more than just this little booklet that I was envisioning. So we designed a 132 page art book, basically, called the Still Anthology, that really shares more of their story and in their own voices. So it's not heavily edited, it's very much their own voice. And it shares the good and bad and the beautiful, and they're very real.
Hmm.
Um, and then in the compendium, which is the smaller booklet, that's a 36-page booklet. That's the book that's for healthcare providers. And that book is even lighter text. So we've really focused that text to be about like what influenced people's decisions to go flat, what that transition was like for them, what challenges they had around going flat, and what life is like for them as a flatty. Um, so um, so it's more of a synopsis in that piece.
Okay. Are you planning to sell the anthology as a way to raise money to print the booklets?
We are.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this will all be launched on January 6th. We have a store that's going up on the Still website. We'll be selling the anthology and the compendium and digital downloads for the compendium. And what we're doing for healthcare providers is we're offering the compendium at no cost for the digital download, and printed copies at cost. So if they wanted to buy, a staple of compendiums to hand out to their patients, we can get those copies to them at a discount.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and because this project isn't about making money, any proceeds that we make from selling these books is really just to cover our out of pocket expenses.
Cool. And it's a black and white project, so that makes it easy to print out in black and white.
Well, the photos are black and white, but the book is not black and white.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you give a physician a digital download, do you picture them printing it in their office?
So what I wanted to do was really just make this as accessible as possible and remove as many barriers as possible for people to actually use this. So the reason why we're providing a digital download is because we can just give it to people, right? And they can spread it however they want, and they can either share a QR code or um, a link to their patients for them to download it themselves. They might want to have a handful of copies that they just have in the office for people to look through there. They can manage it any way they want to, depending on how their practice works. Um, so really, like I said, just trying to remove as many barriers and make it accessible to them to be able to get to it and actually use it and share it.
And then the big question, how much energy and what kind of strategy do you have around getting physicians to actually use this tool?
So, that was the big question. I was like, I am a designer. I don't really know how to do that. Like, this project has pushed me out of my comfort zone so many times, like over and over and over again. And the pathway is just opening up. So, like, if I'm patient and ask the right questions and all of that, I'm getting the answers that I need to move forward. So, with distribution, I was thinking it was going to be largely grassroots. Like, we would get this into the hands of the flatties that I'm connected with through social media, and ask them to take this to their physicians and start spreading the word that way. That was about as far as I got with it. And that's happening. I already have people like saying, "Hey, can let me know when this is ready. I'm going to take it to my doctor." Like, people are lining up to do that.
Hmm.
I have physicians that are hearing about this that are saying that, "Yes, I want this in my office. Let me know when it's ready." And then, can I share some top secret news?
Yeah, please.
So we have been invited by the ASBRS, the American Society of Breast Surgeons, to exhibit at their annual conference in Las Vegas in the spring. So this is going to put this book in front of 1,700 breast surgeons.
Wow. Are the ladies in the book going to be there?
Well, we've got all kinds of things in the works for this event, and none of them have been formulated yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if some
Hmm.
of them came.
I would. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
so exciting. Oh, I just want
yeah,
to say right now, thank you. That is, I mean, it's one thing to have a beautiful book full of photos as a flatty post surgery, but
hmm,
to imagine the possibility that I could have had that book in my hands pre surgery is
yeah.
such a gift. It is so important and so rare. And it takes a lot of forethought and those professional skills that you've gathered, those professional people that you've gathered in order to carry that off well. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, my pleasure. This has been a real joy to work on because obviously that personal connection, right? I found out about AFC on my own. I cannot tell you how many people have come up to me and said, I had to find this on myself. It shouldn't be this hard. Or I was talked out of this. Or I was told just 2 weeks ago, someone told me that they were interested in going flat and their surgeon said no because um, studies show that the outcome for women is better if they have reconstruction, meaning implants or flap surgeries. And that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem, right? So I've been talking a lot with Kim Bowles at Not Putting on a Shirt, and she's showed me studies and everything. There are actually studies that conclude that it's psychologically harmful for a woman not to have breasts. There are other studies that disprove that, but that thinking persists, right? And
Mhm.
obviously, when that woman told me that, I was like, "That's a surgeon who's still thinking about that old study, or is still stuck in thinking about that old trope that we're fighting against, because the truth is different. What we've experienced is different. And that's not to say it's this way for everybody. I know that there are women that go flat and then decide to get implants later or do flap surgeries later. There's no one right way, and I'm not pushing aesthetic flat closure as the thing to do, but what I'm pushing is being given the option. So even if somebody gets this book and they look at this and they see these beautiful photos and they read these compelling stories and they decide that flat is not for them, that's great because even then we have helped them see all the options and make an informed choice.
And I think the statements, the still statements that the models have made really apply to most women who have had mastectomies. They have the same kind of insecurities regardless about whether they are going to still be a certain way or fully feminine in all the ways that
Yeah.
they see themselves before surgery. So I think the message is still really powerful. It's a little bit more stark, maybe, being
Mm-hmm.
that the women, the models are breastless, but the messaging is very poignant and meaningful, I think, for all of us.
Right, right. And that's what I mean. Like, this is resonating with people outside the breast cancer community because anybody who's been through a significant challenge like breast cancer or these big surgeries knows, right? There is that concern, like, what's my life going to be like afterwards? What am I going to look like? Am I still going to be me? And so that thought that you are still, after going through hard things, is incredibly empowering.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like I've been tabling this last October, September, October for Stand Tall AFC. And for the first time, I've been engaging with women who have implants, but had never even contemplated going flat and weren't given
Mhm.
that option. And I would say a good number of them are perplexed by the idea of going flat. And then there's also a great number that I'm surprised each time that have implants and are very unhappy with them, not just
Yeah.
because they're sick, like typical kind of breast implant illness kind of symptoms, but they just don't feel themselves
Yeah.
anymore. And they're desperately looking for an excuse to solve that problem. And I never imagined, I mean, I had so many reasons to go flat. And I had so many physicians telling me I should just get implants. But I never entertained the idea of implants. I always knew I was going to go flat myself.
Yeah.
but I thought I would feel disfigured afterward. And to
Hmm.
be able to tell these women that going flat and feeling themselves will not also include that necessarily that stigma or that belief that you are not whole or you're disfigured. And I just love being able to share that message with all
Yeah.
my heart. You know, it's just, it's such a big truth. I think it's not a natural truth. You wouldn't naturally assume it if you were sitting alone without exposure to other women that have gone through it, but
Yeah.
it's so important.
You're
So,
making me like so anxious to get this book out here because these exact things that you're talking about are spoken about in this book, like this idea of like one young woman. So I have like an incredible age range. So our youngest in the book is 31 and our oldest is 70. And it's different. Like I went through this in my late 50s. I had already had my kids. They were out of the nest. So my considerations were very different than somebody who's in their 30s who might be planning a family, right? And so, anyways, like that, we have a young woman who was planning a family, and she's very athletic, and she says, "I thought I was going to be like a Frankenstein." So the people, those exact concerns are actually really beautifully voiced in this book about implants, about how am I going to look, am I going to hate myself, am I ever going to adjust to this, and how do I adjust to this, and all of that is captured in these 12 stories.
how did you pick the women? I imagine you had a lot to pick from.
We did. So again, it was diversity that I was looking for. So I was looking for that really lovely cross section. The one thing that we did not do, that if we do this again, I should say when we do this again, is I didn't really ask for their stories about how they got to be flatties. So I had asked whether they were survivors or previvors. Um, I'm trying to remember what else I asked them, but we didn't ask for any specifics about their journey in that respect. So when we got to the interviews and afterwards we were reading them, I was like, wow, these are all like everybody's got a different takeaway. Like it's really amazing. And actually, the my daughter, my youngest daughter, Nora, led the interviews and is doing the copywriting for the book. And she said, "Boy, Mom, you and Christy did a like really amazing job, like casting these 12 people. They're so different." And I'm like divine intervention right there. Like I don't know even know how that happened because it was really truly luck of the draw from that perspective. But we were looking at things from an aesthetic standpoint, like I wanted people with different hair. Like I didn't want all blonde people. I wanted like to be different hair colors and different haircuts and different body sizes and types and different, even different scar types. Like
Mm-hmm.
some different scars heal differently on different people. So we wanted to show like what does the thin line incision scar look like versus a keloid scar.
Yep.
So wanting to be able to show those differences as well. So we were looking at more of those sort of visual nuances when we
Mm-hmm.
were selecting than we were story.
But it came out that the stories were diverse too.
Not only were they diverse, so there are commonalities for sure between them, several of them, but their takeaways are all really unique and really compelling.
So you said you're maybe going to do this again. What is that going to look like?
Well, that's to be determined, but like it just has become clear to me that this is not a one and done project. So the I have I've been getting a lot of feedback from people in the breast cancer and flat community about the project. Just comments about things that I've posted or messages that people have sent me, and it has been 100% positive, except for one, so 99.9% positive. One person told me that they were frustrated that they couldn't get to the photo shoot because they had some health concerns and they had some financial limitations that prevented them from being able to come to the shoot, and so it was an accessibility issue. And they said, my story deserves to be told, and um, the truth of the matter is we cannot tell every story. There's no way we can do that, which is again why that diversity is important is important. But we've only told 12 stories, and I think there's more to share out there. So I'm seeing this as volume one, what we're working on right now, and volume two will come down the road, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like. Um, we've talked about the idea of maybe even getting surgeons involved in the project to actually show a surgeon and a patient. I don't know how we get around HIPAA and all of that, but like we'll figure that out. But like because one of the things that I heard is that surgeons don't see this. They do their surgeries and they move on, and they don't see what life is like for people afterwards.
Hmm.
They know what the studies say. They know um, tidbits that they hear from people, but for them to actually, like when I was talking to ASBRS about this project, they were like, we don't see this. This is really interesting for us to see, and wouldn't it be interesting for the surgeons to be telling their side of the story as well? So I thought that's interesting. So we're going to put that in our back pocket for now because I don't have the bandwidth to take that on. But like, so something like that. But it could also just be a very different approach to the book from a visual standpoint. It could be a specific focus. We could broaden it to include other reconstructions. I'm not sure. I'm open to anything right now, but right now it's a flat advocacy piece and a flat advocacy project. So whatever we do is going to stay rooted in that, and we'll just have to see what path opens up for volume two when we get there.
Do you have a dream of making any of the still shots a billboard? You're talking about
Not
billboards.
a not a billboard, but we are doing a poster show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
So we're doing a traveling poster exhibit. So there will be 12 international size posters, which is about 36 by 50 inches of each of the flatties. And there's going to be a video companion piece that goes with that. And we're going to be working to get that into galleries and museums around the United States. So that's going to be, if you think of it in two parts, or if you think of like the mission of Still, creating awareness of aesthetic flat closure and promoting body positivity and flat visibility, the books do all of that, but I think the posters do it from a completely different perspective and are going to hit a completely different range of audience. And that's where I feel like that normalizing flat and the body positivity and the flat visibility, those pieces are really going to be, um, you know, accessed through this poster show.
And what kinds of galleries and museums are you targeting for that?
I'm open to whatever. We're going to start, I think, focusing on New York and Boston, just because we're East Coast right now, and see where we can get it from there. So I'm very much focused on getting the books released on January 6th right now, and then once those are out and about, then I can shift more of my energy towards getting these posters exhibited.
Great. Yeah. Hopefully listeners will have connections in
Yes.
galleries and museums that they can turn you
Yeah.
on to. That would be great. Are the posters pretty durable? Are they like vinyl or cloth, or what are they
So
made of?
I think I'm going to print them on canvas,
Hmm.
subject to change. I still need to do some research about what's going to be best. I'm thinking about like what's going to travel best, what's going to pack best, all those sort of nuances about putting a show like this together. So there's a lot of logistics and little details to take care of that on the sort of functional side of things that are beyond the, what does this look like and what do these posters actually communicate and say to people?
It's great that you have all the participants from so far and wide too, because they can do a little bit of promotion locally for their own communities too.
Yeah, yeah, and we have a PR person on our creative team, so she can help with that as well. And yeah, we're just gonna work our networks and see what we can dig up.
So fun. That's great. Wow. Well, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your personal story. We talked
Hmm.
about the fact that you have two daughters. I don't know if
Yeah.
they're grown daughters or teen daughters, but tell me a little bit about how you worked through with them, whether or not to get tested for the BRCA2 mutation.
Yeah. So when I first found out, they flood you with information about um, what to share. But I got a packet from my genetic counselor that had all the information and all the results, and multiple copies of it that I could just parse out and send to family members and everything, which we did. And so I have a son and two daughters, and we let them all know that this is a thing in our family and that they can get tested if they want to. And my older daughter, she's 28. She got tested right away because she was at that age where if she was positive, she would have started screening at that age. And she thankfully was negative, so that's great. Very thankful for that. My youngest daughter is 24, and she is waiting until next year to test because again, that's when she would start screening if she's positive. But and then my son is holding because for him, he would, the biggest concern with him is prostate cancer, and protocol right now is that they would start screening for that when he's 40, and he's just turned 30. He'll be 31 this week. Um, so he's on hold right now. Plus, he was like going through a move and a big job change at the time, so it just wasn't the right time for him. But um, so two kids have not tested yet. One has, and I've just been really open about my own thinking about all of this and why I've made the decisions that I've made, and understanding that they're going to make their own decisions, and that's fine. But like, let's just share the information, right, and be very open about it, and so that they can feel comfortable asking questions, or I don't know, just there's no need to be closed about this. Let's just share what we know and share what our experiences are, and then support each other through whatever decisions we choose to make individually. But my daughters, they saw me go through this mastectomy, and my youngest actually came. None of the kids live in Vermont anymore, so one's in New York City, one's in Boston, and my son's out in Seattle. So when I had my mastectomy, my daughter who lives in Boston, my youngest, came to visit me and everything. So she saw what you go through after mastectomy and all of that. And and she's told me, if I'm BRCA positive, I'm probably going to do the same thing that you did. So like for me, it's about being a role model for my kids, and being a role model is not about making it all look easeful and pretty. It's about showing how it really is and being honest about it and being vulnerable. And so that's what I've been trying to do with them. And so when I told them about Still, this project and this photo shoot, they were like, "We want to be there."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Great, I'm putting you to work," because like again, this is a big task to get 12 people through this process in one day. And there are a lot of places where things could get tripped up, and so having extra hands just made sense. Nora she had just graduated from Mount Holyoke College with an English degree. She was the perfect person to do these interviews and do this writing. Hannah she manages a restaurant in Times Square, and she's got a hospitality background. So that's what she did. She kind of was our hospitality director and just made sure that all the Flatties felt comfortable and safe on set. I realized that I was bringing in 12 people, well, 11 and myself, who had been through some pretty traumatic things. And I realized that the very photo shoot itself could bring up big feelings. And so I wanted to make sure that everyone felt safe on set and comfortable on set. We put together this beautiful community agreement that outlined like, should something not go well, like should something be said that feels harmful to you, or should something make you feel uncomfortable, this is how we're going to approach it, and this is what we're not going to tolerate, and this is how we're going to do things. So it was all kind of spelled out ahead of time. That community agreement was included in our photo release, or yeah, that we sent out and had everybody sign. Cast and crew signed it, so everybody was on the same page. So Hannah was really there just to make sure like people were okay and felt good and were doing well. And then she ended up sort of doing double duty and doing some photo assistant work while on set too, because it was a very busy, bustling day.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Has your daughter dealt well with the kind of anticipation of waiting a year and wondering what the future will look like?
I think so. I think for her, it just she has clarity about what she would do if she was positive,
Hmm.
and so I think she has. I don't sense that there's fear there. Um, I'm sure she'll be happy to know and just know one way or the other. But I don't. I'm not sensing any sense of discomfort in the wait at this point.
Great. That's good to hear. Thankfully, it's something you can get paid for pretty easily now. So,
Yeah, yeah, yep, yep. So that's all good. Yes, I think we're okay there for the time being. We'll just take it as it comes, right? That's the best we can do. But it
yeah.
was really amazing to have them at the shoot, and because not only that they see, I mean, they know my story.
Hmm.
They've seen me after my surgery when I was first able to take off those bandages. The drains are out. You're finally feeling human again. And I remember thinking that I was really going to want to wear prosthetics. And so I was really eager to get my prescription to go to the place and get my real prosthetic.
Hmm.
And then Athleta sells these really nice, it has a really nice mastectomy bra and really inexpensive inserts. So I bought a set of A cups through D cups to just explore and see what I would want to wear. And so I remember after my surgery, my daughters were visiting and we were trying on all these foods. Like, and it was just so fascinating to me that how not me they were.
Yep.
They were just they felt awkward. I was like, I didn't like, do I have them in the right place? Like, is it supposed to be up higher or further? Like, I can't tell. This doesn't look right. And so we ended up wearing them as shoulder pads and butt pads and like just like playing with them and stuff. But like, and I've never ever worn them. I'll donate them to somebody. But like, um, it just became really apparent that I'm flat now. That's who I am, and I don't need to put things in my shirt to disguise that. That felt almost dishonest to me. Like I'm not being myself. I'm not being true to who I am by wearing prosthetics. That's me. Everybody has their own feelings about that, but that's where I was. But boy, did we have fun playing with them.
Aw, I love that. Yeah, I feel exactly the same. Even as a uni, I had for 9 months, I had a single double D breast, and I always just longed to be free of that prosthetic. I did get used to using it, but I never felt good in it. And I felt so much better when I had my second mastectomy. And I did have those Athleta inserts. I never wore, I got A's and D's because I thought D's would be matching my natural size. Never wore any of them out of the house. It was
Yeah,
just so not okay with
yeah.
me.
It was startling to me because I was so sure that's what I was going to want,
Hmm.
and it really just it didn't resonate at all with me at the after the fact. So um, yeah.
Well, we're getting low on time, but I want to ask you one more thing. You mentioned the dynamic of having all 12 of those women in the photo shoot. And
Mhm.
I I regularly volunteer with Danielle Rogers here in Oregon that does photo shoots with survivors and mainly flatties. And she intentionally has women come together, 2 and 3 women at a time for a photo shoot
Mhm.
because she believes that the power of that experience as a shared experience is really um, healing in itself. Like it makes the photos more beautiful and joyful.
Yeah.
So, do you have any magical moments to share about the dynamic that was created that day?
Oh boy, let me tell you, um, that day rendered me speechless for weeks afterwards. Literally could not form words or sentences to describe what happened on that set. So the night before the shoot, we loaded into the studio. We got the set put together. We did some test shots, things like that. And then we did a meet and greet. We had the Flatties come that evening. Not everybody could come, but most of them did. And it was the first time that we had been together. Many of these people I had known on social media, but never had met in person. And some of them I hadn't known at all. And the moment they set foot in that studio, I knew them. It's like we knew each other, we were connected, we were bonded, we were family of the best kind, and it was not like anything I've ever experienced before. It was profound. It was, and it wasn't just the Flatties. Like the whole crew felt it too. Like it was just that studio just filled with love and compassion and joy. And so that shoot was not about trauma or loss at all. It was about joy and positivity and love. Um, it was a long day. We were shooting for close to 12 hours maybe, and there was a lot of downtime. And they could have just been sitting around, or they could have left or come back, or whatever. But basically, there was just this little huddle of Flatties that stood at the opening of the set that were just cheering on whoever was having their session at the time. And it was loud and it was joyful and it was just, I don't know. I've not experienced anything like it. And I imagine this is what people experience when they do go to these retreats and other camps and events and things. I had not experienced that before. And like I said, I'm not kidding. I was rendered speechless. I was a mess. I cried for 3 weeks afterwards
Yeah.
because I was like, what was that? What just happened? It was absolutely mind blowing. And to put it in a little bit of perspective, my executive producer and photographer have been in this industry for 35 years, and they've worked with really incredible clients over those years. And they said at the end of the shoot that this was the best shoot of their careers. That says something. That tells you how impactful that day was. So the shoot, which was just meant to be a means to an end to get these images and stories to create these publications, the shoot itself became a thing.
Powerful. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine that just having Linda there, she's been to so many flat gatherings in person and experienced so much love and given so much love. And that kind of experience just travels with you and it just continues to be imparted, wherever you go, I think. And that's the wonderful thing about the flat community. It's such a safe and affirming place to be. And it's
Yeah.
so important to see each other in person for that reason.
We had a couple of firsts at the shoot. Someone had their first flat hug with another flattie.
Hmm.
Someone took their shirt off in front of other people for the first time.
Wow.
Um, One person left and said they threw out their prosthetics because they felt so loved and so confident after going through that experience that it changed their mind about wearing prosthetics. So it was profound. I don't have another word for it. It was life changing. It was beautiful. It was, I don't know, it was
Oh,
pretty amazing.
I love it. I'm so glad you did that. It's great to hear about all of the photography experiments and projects that are happening all
Yeah,
over for all kinds of breast cancer survivors and just how healing they
yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and what I love about these is that, I mean, obviously there are a lot of beautiful professional photos out there of flatties. I feel like these strike a different chord. I think they're going to feel fresh to people. I hope they will. I think they will. They're very stunning and compelling. I don't know, something about the black and white that's really striking. I'm curious to see what you're going to think when you see it.
Yeah, well, share all the information with us. Tell us your handles, and then also, most importantly, how can we get a book or a download?
Yeah. So the best place to follow this project is on Instagram at Project Still Me. So I'm at So This Is Flat, and I started talking about the project there, and it's become such a thing. It grew up and got its own Instagram. So Project Still Me is the Instagram handle, and then the website is project-still.me, and we're going to be launching a store on the site on January 6th, and the books in all their versions, so the printed versions of the anthology and both the print and the digital downloads of the compendium will be available on the website on January 6th.
Well, we'll be lining up and getting some for each of our booths at the Stand Tall Walks.
Oh, excellent. Yes. Yeah.
That'll be amazing.
Yeah, that's the other thing we're trying. We've got a couple of organizations that are going to promote or offer links to this work through their sites and things like that too. So I think it's going to be a many hands make light work situation where we'll just tackle this from all kinds of angles and get this into the hands of the people that can make a difference.
What are the names of those organizations?
Well, not putting on a shirt
Okay.
is one of them. So Kim's been a super ally, great friend. Just been so amazing and sharing information with me, and so they're going to be putting this on their website as well. And
Great.
we'll see where else. There's a magazine in Texas that is interested in including this in a mailing to the 50 top cancer centers that they send their magazine to quarterly.
Hmm.
So we're looking for opportunities like that, and just just different ways and angles to get this into the hands of people who are consulting with women about reconstruction options.
Oh, thanks again, Lisa. This is such a great gift, and I can't wait to hear what comes next for you in this area.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to share about it.
Yeah, anytime.